Let me introduce our team. Who are we? We are all friends and partners of BMZ GIZ. We are ECRAF, we are Ecoconsult, we are GIZ, and we are Wageningen from the Netherlands. Let me start with introducing Mark van der Waal from IUCN. Mark is from the Netherlands. Then I introduce you to Apejagbo Kofi from Togo, working with GIZ. Then we have Mr. Steve Sepp, working with Ecoconsult. Lots of experience globally, Madagascar in particular. Then we have Christine Zeeberg from BMZ. And we have Mary Nyenga from ICRAF in Nairobi. And I am Cora van Oosten, and I'm Dutch. I'm from the Netherlands, from Wageningen University. All right. Now I would really like to know who you are. Who are you? Do we have any farmers in the room? Yes, we have one farmer. 2 farmers. More farmers? Okay, please be very critical to what we're going to say, because you are the experts. Do we have academics in the room? Quite a few. You are quite many. Okay, farmers, keep an eye on the academics and make sure that we won't go too far from reality. Do we have high-level policymakers in the room? Do we have not so high-level policymakers in the room? Government. Yeah, are you working for government? No. What are you? Who are you?
I'm Emilio de los Rios from Mexico. I work as a private consultant on bioenergy.
Okay, so we have private sector in the room. Do we have more private sector? Do we have entrepreneurs? Quite a few. Do we have investors? Money people. We also have an investor. That's good, because we're going to ask you some good questions. Because, okay, without much ado, all of you have red cards and green cards. That's because we want to know your opinions. We don't want academic debates. We want a clear, crystal, sharp, quick opinion. And I'm going to give you a statement. And if you agree, you can raise the green card. And if you disagree, you can raise the red card. All right? Now, the statement is as follows. The statement is, extraction of wood energy is a threat to forested landscapes. Red, green, red, green, green, red. This is a highly nuanced audience. Extraction of wood energy is a threat to forested landscapes. Are you green or are you red? You are green. Okay, so if I roughly say, a small majority says wood energy is a threat to forested landscapes. No, some disagree. Then the next statement. We're not debating now, just black or white. The next statement. Listen carefully. Extraction of wood energy is an opportunity for forested landscapes. Whoa. Whoa. It's all green. So we can go home now. We all agree. Except for there's somebody at the back there who has both green and red. Madam, I would like to ask your opinion, but not now. But I'll keep you in mind. Okay. First, we would like some facts and figures. We would like to set the scene for our topic. We'd like to have a bit more nuances, whether wood energy is a threat or an opportunity. And I would like to ask Christina to give us some of these facts and figures for setting our scene. Christina?
Okay. Well, good afternoon, everybody. I'm very glad to, actually now it has filled up a bit more, and I do think we have attracted quite a bit of attention within the Global Landscapes Forum to the topic. So also welcome from my side to all of you. And so we will be looking at the topic of sustainable wood energy as a restoration option. If we look at the global scale, it's a high number of people, 2.6 billion people, who actually depend on wood energy, mainly in developing countries, but you can see the scale of the issue is quite widespread. In many families, if you look, for example, at Sub-Saharan Africa, it's 80% of the population use wood for cooking or for sterilizing water. And because of the lack of alternative energy sources, often in remote areas, but also because of urbanization, there's an increase in demand which can be observed over the globe. Some people say wood energy is an old-fashioned energy source. However, that is not necessarily true. If you look at developments in Europe, you can see that it's regaining importance again. In Germany, for example, we have 2/3 of the renewables energy supply coming from wood energy, which is quite a high proportion. The demand will also in the future increase even more. And to meet climate change mitigation targets and the need to achieve global renewable energy, this issue really needs to be addressed. Also when you're looking at the international level, at the ongoing international negotiations or current debates, looking at the sustainable development goals, it's clearly reflected in goal number 7 to ensure access to affordable, reliable, sustainable energy for all. And this is only possible if we also integrate the potentials of wood energy into this. So there is a potential there to see wood energy as a renewable energy source, but there's certain preconditions which we have to look at. The harvest, in a way, needs to equal what is being produced. We need to look at health hazards as well. It's not an easy topic as such, as most of you will probably know as well. It also contributes to forest degradation and forest deforestation as well. For example, in Sub-Sahara Africa, 50% of forest degradation is attributed to wood energy being or wood being extracted as an energy source. So we really have an issue here with respect to the inefficient use of wood energy as well as the increasing demand in wood fuel. Therefore, what we really have to talk about and what we want to address here and look at is the current unsustainable production and use of wood energy and its major impact it can have on landscapes and on people, but also to see where we can find opportunities when it comes to the restoration of landscapes and looking at the restoration of forests and agricultural sites as well. Thank you.
Right. So based on what Christina just told us, all of you are right. Yes, wood energy can be a threat to landscapes, but they can also be an opportunity if a number of prerequisites are met. Okay.
Cora, can I just ask one question?
But a quick one.
Did you say 50% of all forest degradation in Sub-Saharan Africa is due to basically wood energy?
It's attributed to, yeah. 50%.
It's quite a lot. So actually half-half. Yet half threat, half opportunity, if I may say so. Okay, before we start the debate, because we will debate certainly, I would like you to take you to the real world, and that is in this case to Madagascar, where we see how local partners, governments, NGOs and citizens are actually working very hard to restore their landscapes by planting trees for wood energy. Here we go.
Without charcoal, most of the stoves in Madagascar's kitchens would stay cold. Urban households are especially reliant on it. Cooking in the northern city of Antsiranana is still 85% charcoal-based. Few changes can be expected in the foreseeable future. A mere 14% of Madagascar's households are connected to the power grid. Gas is not widely affordable, and at just under 1%, the number of solar cookers in use is negligible. At the same time, many people in rural Madagascar boost their meagre income by making charcoal and selling it to the townspeople. The wood they need to make this charcoal, they chop down from the forests illegally. The negative impacts on the environment are plain to see. Tree stumps stick out of the scorched earth, while erosion cuts its way across the landscape.
Satria tsy mety mandroboka tontolo iainana faharoa zegny tsy avoaro zegny motro mety mipiky motro igny lasa mandeha dolo tanety sy ny tariny ary izy koa latsaka malegny reka tany jiaby mirorogna igny ambany amin'ny tany amilomano tegna amin'ny tanimbary igny ary may poto koa izy satria ny hoavy ny zanakanao tsisy eky satria efa tapaka rango zio zegny zegny maratsy tapako tamin'ny valovolagna teo fô
Abdu Mukbel also worked as an illegal charcoal maker for many years. Then in 1996 he heard about GreenMad. In the meantime, this project has become part of the German Malagasy Environment Programme that is being implemented by GIZ on behalf of Germany's Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development. Abdu Mukbel and his wife Odette have been involved from the start. GreenMad set itself the objective of reducing the use of charcoal in urban households. Furthermore, it aimed to develop sustainable production methods that would open up alternative sources of income for the impoverished rural population. This was the only way the project could get people to see why it made sense to manage forest resources sustainably. Some 4,200 households have since got involved and reforested an area covering some 9,000 hectares in Diana in the most northern reaches of the island. For the most part, they have used eucalyptus trees, as these grow very quickly and are particularly good for making charcoal. People decide together which areas are not viable for crop cultivation and can be reforested. This is a particularly good way of reusing soils that are already degraded while safeguarding against any further erosion. GIZ advises mainly on technical and administrative matters, but also supplies the people on site with the tools and seeds they need.
Nambarin'lo za lalagna jiaby ro nanonga teo kitsikelana omby tao nitry fiarah-miasa tao tamin'izay misy fanaovana pépinière fanaovana famafezagna jiaby asa tokony asa jiaby namiandreo fa ireo zegny misy partirany asa zegny namiandreo antena namiandreo nataondreo.
To give people greater legal certainty, the environmental program is helping to fast-track a non-bureaucratic and affordable procedure for issuing land titles. Abdu Mukbel and his wife were able to take possession of their title deeds after just 2 months.
Ny fahazoana karatana noho ny tamin'ny taloha zegny mikarakara amin'ny domaine sarotro be fikarakarana izy tamin'ny domaine fa izy ka fanavy zegny le fagnanaovana karatana tao amin'ny commune tsy nijaly zay ara-tsy lany vola be zegny zay nandeha nagnamboatra le karatana.
Abdu Mukbel now makes his coal using a modern dome-shaped furnace which the environmental program helped develop. This new furnace allows him to make twice as much charcoal from the same amount of wood as a traditional furnace, and up to 4 times as quickly. The environmental program is not just limited to the eco-friendly production of charcoal, but encompasses the entire value chain. With GIZ support, Abdu Mukbel therefore got together with the owners of other plots of land to set up a cooperative with their own sales point. Now, every month, they sell up to 1,000 sacks of sustainably produced charcoal. In the city, craftsmen have been specially trained to make fuel-efficient stoves. Urban households are now not only saving money, but by using so-called green charcoal, they are proactively helping to preserve the forests of Madagascar. Today, Abdu Mukbel is a successful entrepreneur. As a trainer, he shares his newly acquired knowledge with others. It is his wish that the people and the forests in Madagascar will have a future together.
Mila finiavana anao amin'ny asa ataonao jiaby, mila manana zotom-ponao tsy mila kivana amin'ny raha. Fataoko fa izy koa magnano karaha io fo namanay ho lasa patron rehefa nofinofina karango ela zegny le charbonnier zegny.
Asa fa tsy kabary, mila miasa ho antoko ny ho avy.
this is a seedling. Mr. Entrepreneur, this is the best charcoal. I want your opinion. The crack is good? Yeah, tastes good. Okay, I would like to ask one of our panel members, before asking your opinion, don't worry, I'll do so. But before, I would like to ask Steve. Stephen, can you explain to us why this project has been a success? And I will not give you more than 10 minutes. I've got a huge watch. So 10 minutes.
Okay. So I have to be quick.
Yes, here's the mic. And
thank you for giving me the floor.
Here you go.
Yeah. I just would like to present to you some figure and facts of the project we were just which has been just presented. Reforestation in the framework of a landscape approach. To familiarize you a little bit with the framework conditions, I want just to put it, I just want to show you that about 22 million people are, or 98% of the Madagascan people are dependent or rely on fuel wood. The same is for Africa, and the International Energy Agency prospects that in 2030 there will be about 980,000 people. One thing which is often underestimated is the high value of the wood fuel chain generated in rural areas. And it outreaches often agricultural export products. Yeah, so in the amount of charcoal marketed, only marketed through is about $120 million a year. In Sub-Saharan Africa, FAO estimates it to 40 billion US dollars. Forest cover change within the time span of 10 years is merely identically with that of Africa. And as Madame Seefeld already pointed out, it's slightly different, the figure, but it's a 40 or it might be also a 50% that is attributed to wood energy as a driver of deforestation. But since 50 years, the amount of charcoal consumed is steadily increasing by about 3%. This is due to the fact that of urbanization, many people switch from wood to charcoal with even greater impact on forests. The approach comprises 4 steps. The first step is that a participatory landscape analysis is made. This means you have to identify related problems, but also the potential, the opportunities of this landscape. You have to analyze the wood energy value chain. And this you need to create awareness among all stakeholders, but especially to the political, to the politicians. Because without the political backing, you are not able to undergo such an activity. The other one is to improve enabling framework conditions. Yeah? This means you have to enter a policy dialogue. You have to try to improve institutional and the regulatory framework, to inform and capacitate the actors, all to create transparency and equity in this. The measures which have been developed are reforestation, natural forest management, natural forest protection, and of course value chain development. If you undergo such activities, it is essential to have a monitoring, a very close monitoring to evaluate the impacts. This is not only to close the knowledge gaps, but also to provide recommendations to the government and to disseminate the best practices hereafter. Why was this approach success? In fact, there are 3 success factors. The first thing is you have to create enabling framework conditions. You have to mainstream wood energy value not only in local land use plans but also in regional land use plans, so as to identify areas which are apt for reforestation. Then you should, and this is also an important fact, to elaborate regional biomass energy strategies on regional level. I know they are made on national level, but regional is important because there you can take into account the site conditions. And they are a sort of framework for everything what you are doing. They are an outflow of a stakeholder process. Second or third, is secure land tenure. This is it's a multi-annual crop. Yeah, so land tenure must be ensured. And with this, you often have to set up local cadastral offices, so to institutionalize this land tenure. And of course, in many African countries, wood energy is part, or in this wood energy, corruption is endemic. Yeah, so promoting law enforcement on the one side and fighting corruption, a very sensitive issue, has to be done. Extremely important, and to incentivize the people, the stakeholders. This means by fiscal reforms, yeah, a differential taxation system, for example, is one of the important tool. Second success factor is, we call it now turning users to owners, secure land tenure. Just to repeat, in the first, we identify, or on a local level, in the framework of a land use plan, the area up for reforestation is identified. Then there is a mechanical soil preparation, costs are borne by technical assistance, but then the interesting thing is that this land is parceled out and handed over to interested households. And if these households are able to reforest, and after 2 years there's a control, if 80% of the trees are still there, he has, or she, or the household has the possibility to ask for a land title. Yeah, and this is the incentive, in fact. Yeah, and we have to know it's all degraded land. It is degraded land. Therefore, when planting, there is a code of conduct. I mean, I hope there comes question: why do you use eucalyptus, for example? Yeah, I hope this question will come up. Oh, then I have to. Then third is. Such an intervention has to go all along the value chain, not start with the production or consumption only. Often improved stoves are isolated projects. Yeah, you have to see them within a whole value chain. Why? And now I come already to the impacts, because we have synergy effects. Yeah. And not going too deep into this table, but you see on the left column there's the traditional value chain. On the, wait a minute, there is, yes, this is a traditional value chain, the modernized value chain. Yeah, this is, for example, the annual increment. You have an improvement coefficient. And by introducing improved technologies on carbonization and combustion, you have these gain efficiencies. These you can multiply, and you have a leverage factor of 9.1. This means, instead, with 1 hectare, instead of supplying sustainably 1.5 person, you are able to supply nearly 14. Yes, I'm. Yeah, you can supply 14 persons. Now, just a study has been made, an exploitation of the satellite data of 30 years. And 15 years, the first 15 years without reforestation and land use modeler software. Oh, oops. Then this region would have looked like this. After reforestation, this is the current situation of the Diana region, and there you see that there is much more forest due to this reforestation. So 9,000 hectares of reforestation were enough to preserve 100,000 of natural forests. This study has also been presented. So there are ecological, economic, and social benefits.
Wonderful.
Yes.
I told you I was going to be strict. Is there anybody having a problem so far? Is there any problem in this room? Like this guy? Okay, tell us your problem.
Really good material, not enough time.
Okay, that's my fault. Good, problem solved. Okay, before we go into the debate, and yes, I also like a debate on eucalyptus and whether or not that is a nice plant. I love it. I would like to give the floor to Mary. And Mary, I would really like you to zoom into the local level, because this is a lovely story. But what actually happens at household level, at local people's livelihood when it comes to wood energy? I'll put on your thing. Mary. Here you go, Mary.
Yeah. I'd like to talk about agroforestry for sustainable wood fuel. And when I talk about wood fuel, it's both charcoal and firewood. And it is, as we have heard from Christina, this is the #1 type of cooking and heating energy, for example, in Sub-Saharan Africa. And therefore, when we look at the issues of wood fuel, it's a matter of vital survival. And I'd like to look at it from a cooking system perspective, all the way from production of wood, how you make charcoal, you convert wood into charcoal, and how you utilize it. Because the whole system has to be made efficient and sustainable if we have to achieve sustainable wood fuel.
Oh, the remote. Oh, what happened to the remote? Here you go.
So if you look at that, let me give a case of Kenya. For example, we need 2.5 million tons of charcoal per year. Now, this can be produced, for example, from the dry rats or from high rats, different ecological zones. But depending on where it's being produced, this will require different size of the area because of the biomass productivity. Having that in mind, we know that from Kenya, most of the charcoal is coming from the dry rats with very low biomass. And therefore, as it has been mentioned before, the way we convert wood into charcoal matters a lot. Because you will need bigger areas to grow biomass for charcoal if you are using inefficient kilns. If you look at that kiln there, with about 10% efficiency of converting wood into charcoal, then that means you are like smoking 90% of the wood into the air, causing air pollution and wood wastage. If then you shift to improved kilns, then you are saving on wood in terms of the demand. And there are various systems that we could adopt in terms of producing wood. And if we can be able to manage, for example, native vegetation of acacia, Drapinorobium, acacia, whatever, and then we can be able, for example, farmers in the dry rut, if you had like 12 acres, and then you subdivide that into 12 blocks, then, for example, you're harvesting wood from every block per year, and you can use coppice management such that these shrubs or trees, you get the stems, they mature, and then they sprout, and you have more biomass still. Better still, we can have farmers growing trees for firewood. And look at this system. It's in Siaya in Kenya, where farmers are growing acacia species for charcoal, but then it's intercropped with crops either or even with pasture. You get multiple benefits from this kind of system, that you get charcoal, you get firewood from the branches, you get honey, you get pasture, and all the ecosystem services that trees have in our agro ecosystems. And this way, then we are reducing this kind of problem for women. For example, you reduce the workload, and we have even cases where, for example, farmers have grown trees, and like 40% of them are able just to depend on the trees on farm for firewood. And this system then brings firewood closer to women. It builds healthy landscapes and healthy families. Then if you look at this photograph here, this is a drawing showing that, for example, we have charcoal coming from the dry rut, and then it's transported and utilized in the urban areas. That means we really have to look at both systems, where the rural areas are fueling the cities. So sustainability, we have to look at the production in the rural areas, utilization in the urban areas. And anytime I think about efficient cooking systems, I only have one motivation, and the motivation is that no one should die cooking. No one should die cooking, seriously. And then what should we do? Indoor air pollution is one of the factors that gives the negativity to wood fuel, and therefore we have to address it. And if we have to address it efficiently, we have to look at the wood. What type of species? Is it wet? Is it dry? And then we have to look at the cook stove itself. And then, what about ventilation? And look at the user behavior. You could have a very good cook stove, but then you are cooking in a closed system. The efficiency is lost. You could use wet wood on an improved cook stove. Then the efficiency is lost. There are a lot of development in terms of cooking, cook stoves. These cook stoves, the efficient ones save fuel, and therefore you are saving on wood. And then some of them, like the micro gasifiers, where you are using firewood, for example, and you're producing biomass gas. And that gas burns at a very high temperatures with very low emissions, reducing emissions to like CO 45%, particulate matter 90%. And the other benefit is that you're producing charcoal while you're cooking. And that charcoal is a good cooking fuel. All these kind of benefits. But then how do we move from this kind of systems to gasifiers, improved cook stoves? It's a very persuasive kind of technology. People have to shift, and people have to appreciate that they need to change. And we are saying there is all this technological development in terms of producing wood sustainably, in terms of carbonization processes, cook stoves, and yet we are not there with sustainable wood fuel. Why are we not there yet? There is a lot of negativity, negative perception. And this, then it gives the wood fuel a more negative environment than nurturing it. We could be even very far with technology development in wood fuel, but that perception affects everything. There is inadequate funding, inadequate investment in wood fuel. In your own governments, what proportion of the budget on energy goes to wood fuel, making it sustainable? What proportion? The other thing is that, what about the policy? Wood production, maybe is at forestry, is at agriculture. What about energy? Is that at the Ministry of Energy, Petroleum? There is no coordination. There is no proper regulation. And the policies that are there are more disabling than enabling. And finally, how do we localize the improved cooking systems? How do we look at it as a system from production to carbonization, transportation, and utilization to make it sustainable? So what the take message here is that let's approach wood fuel from a cooking system approach. Production, carbonization, utilization, marketing, because it's already going on, and it's an opportunity that can empower communities and have healthy landscapes.
Wow. Very nice. Restoring landscapes, starting at the woman's cook stove in a rural community, and that's where it should start. Is there anybody having a problem so far? You have a problem. Share with us your problem.
Actually, I don't have any problem. This was an excellent presentation, but because I have to leave also soon, I want to raise the issue of illegality of charcoal production. I think particularly in Kenya, it's not legal. So and if you also could mention something.
Then you have a problem, because we are going to discuss this, but not now. Or maybe can we, because Steve, you talked a lot about legal enforcement and legal frameworks. Can you give Madame a very brief reply, because she has to leave our place?
Yes, I mean, in Kenya, it's a $1 billion business. Yeah, it's extreme. $1 billion per year business. And there is, the government raises no taxes. Yeah, everything is illegal. Most of it, not everything. Let's say it like this. And this is so, fighting corruption is one of the most important steps you have to do. I mentioned it already. And
so, Madame, you are right. This is a problem. Mary.
I don't know how to respond to this, because charcoal in Kenya is not illegal. It's legal. It has guidelines, policy regulations, which are under the Kenya Forest Services. If it's under the ministry, you know, under the arm that manage forests, and they are the ones who are responsible of regulating it. Possibly what's illegal is the perception. It's a legal business. You need to acquire a permit to show where you are producing it. Then you transport it.
Yeah, but that's a problem. Most people, they cannot get the permit.
Okay. Yep. You have to leave. I will continue the debate. I think a big issue is here not how to criminalize the charcoal chain, but how to legalize the charcoal chain and put it under better control, because it is big business and profitable business indeed, and that's where the opportunity lies, at the same time the threat. Okay, we've heard about the Madagascar case. Then Mary brought the issue to the very local level. I think it would be lovely now if Mark could help us to zoom out and look at the same issue from an international donor and investor perspective. Mark, please.
Thank you. Yes, so basically I won't linger on too much, because I think most of the important issues have already been mentioned by the former speakers, specifically by the last speaker. But I want to highlight your attention to some points. The issues at stake is, well, I think the first one in particular is good to notice that, of course, with population growth, of course, agricultural production has had a boost and is still receiving a boost. But what we see now is that the gain that we get in agricultural production by this boost in technology is lost by the loss of land and degradation of land. So that is a reality. What I also want to stress is the second point is when we live in a landscape, whether I'm against eucalyptus or not, but everyone needs certain qualities from that landscape. When I live there, when I farm there, I need to cook my food. So this domestic fuel needs to come from somewhere. If it doesn't come from LPG or from biogas, it'll probably come from the landscape around me. So what we have to keep in mind is that we've got various uses in those landscapes, and we all want to keep those landscapes functional for our children. We all need the same services from those landscapes. We all need water. That water comes from somewhere. We all need fertile soils. The fertile soils are being maintained by certain systems. We all need domestic fuel to cook our food. So on the one hand, you see, of course, the scale has been mentioned. It is massive, and it's expanding with expanding populations. Also, the financial interest is massive. A bag of these in a population where you talk about the refugees, 600,000 refugees around Goma, everyone needs to cook their food. It's cold, it's high. A bag costs about $20 US, and you have no money. So where does this wood come from? It comes from the natural environment, which protect your sources of water. We take another assumption how sort of the business community jumps in it. We've already been mentioned that it is a big business, both the illegal and sort of the legal solutions. The Madagascar case where you try to generate sustainable charcoal from farmers-based land. In Ghana, people take it from another perspective where the government have asked sort of private sector investor to come in to rehabilitate state-owned land, in this case, reserves. Because also not only on farmers-owned land you see the degeneration, but also on state-owned land. So if we talk about maintaining the key functions of landscapes, we also have to look at sort of state-owned land. So there are various ways of tackling it. Now, one other issue that I would like to bring to your attention is over the last couple of years, we've seen a lot of discussions and a lot of programs on food security. Food security is a word that is in the minds of many donor organizations because population is rising and we need to produce more food. That is evident. What we see is that we've got a certain group of society that is mainly worried about the domestic fuel issues, about the charcoal issues. On the other hand, you've got another group of people that are working on food security issues. But if we see those large programs that are being developed now, economic growth corridors, agricultural growth corridors, these are landscape level initiatives that try to attract investors that have a landscape-wide impact. In these landscapes, all these people that live and work in these landscapes, even if you bring big investors there, those people will need to get fuelwood or fuel to cook their meals. If we want to maintain sort of productivity of the landscape in which we produce food, in which we have our agro-industrial growth corridors, then we need to be sure that we maintain the environmental safeguards that are needed to protect the production landscapes. Those production landscapes, they will need water. They will need fertility. So when we plan for large-scale food security programs, we've got to bear in mind that we've also got to solve that domestic fuel issue. Without solving that domestic fuel issue, there is no long-term cross-generational food security possible because we are denuding the landscapes. So there's a pledge that we make those cross-sectoral links. When you think of food security, you are obliged to somehow address that fuel wood problem. Thank you.
You knew I was just sitting behind you. Okay, now if we go back to the initial question, whether wood energy is a threat to the landscape or an opportunity to the landscape. After hearing all these stories, I want to ask you the same question again. And those who feel that wood energy is more a threat than an opportunity, please raise your red cards. And if you feel that wood energy is more an opportunity than a threat, you raise your green cards. Can we all raise cards? Green, red, it depends on it depends, yes, of course, it depends. Green, red, green, red, green, red. Yeah, very, very, very green. Many of you have both red and green. You are definitely the academics, the thinkers. The entrepreneur is definitely green. What is the investor? Of course, she's red and green. Just a nuanced investor. Yeah, okay. But this is the point. Is it a threat? Is it an opportunity? Is it both? Is it a false antagonism? Is it complementary? Kofi, we haven't heard much from you yet. I would like you to reflect on this mixture of colors. Please tell us something from Togo.
Okay. Thank you for giving me this opportunity, but I will speak in French. Merci pour cette opportunité, Cora. Les réactions sont différentes dans la salle et la situation dans tous les pays africains, disons tous les pays en Afrique au sud du Sahara, la situation n'est pas différente au Togo. Et cette question de bois énergie est une question très cruciale. Quand je prends la situation du Togo, la majorité de la population vit en milieu rural. Et cette majorité vit dans un premier temps à base de cette énergie qui est le charbon et qui est également le bois pour la cuisson et pour le chauffage de toutes sortes d'aliments ou bien de tout. Et au-delà de ça, il y a toute une population qui vit en ville. Et cette population qui vit en ville est nourrie en termes d'énergie par la population à la base qui produit cette énergie-là à base de bois ou à base de charbon. Donc, la question est que tout au long de la chaîne, il y a un aspect qui est le gain tout au long de la chaîne et au niveau des producteurs. Donc, pour eux, c'est une activité de substitution parce que la majorité de ceux qui vivent en milieu rural ont une extrême pauvreté et dans un premier temps, ils ont besoin de résoudre ce problème de pauvreté d'abord. Et donc, la seule solution, la forêt est autour, nous faisons tout autour de la forêt et donc, la seule activité qui est là, donc qui est rentable aujourd'hui en milieu rural, le voilà, le bois énergie. Et nous l'utilisons et nous produisons également pour pouvoir vendre. Mais malheureusement, c'est l'utilisation du bois dans ce sens, aujourd'hui, contribue à la déforestation, ça a été déjà dit. Et au Togo, c'est l'un des éléments clés donc, qui contribue à la déforestation au Togo. Ce bois énergie est une opportunité dans la mesure où c'est produit d'une manière durable. Si ce bois est produit de manière durable, si ce charbon est produit de manière durable, ça devient alors une opportunité parce que tout au long de la chaîne, nous voyons qu'il y a des gens qui produisent dans un premier temps, il y a des gens qui transportent et il y a des gens qui vendent. Donc c'est toute une chaîne, ça crée de l'emploi. Dans un monde de pauvreté, dans un milieu pauvre, ça crée également de l'emploi pour les gens en transportant le charbon de bois, en transportant le bois en ville, en vendant le bois, en vendant le charbon de bois. Donc, c'est toute une chaîne qui est là, mais pour que ça devienne encore, je reviens là-dessus, pour que ça devienne une opportunité, il faut que ça soit durable. Donc, voilà mon point. Mais au-delà de ça, nous avons au niveau de la GIZ au Togo, nous avons un programme qui est dans le cadre de la RED+. Donc, qu'est-ce que nous faisons? Dans un premier temps, nous sommes en train de faire ce que nous appelons l'inventaire forestier national. Et dans cet inventaire forestier national, ça nous permet aujourd'hui de distinguer les zones dans lesquelles il y a plus de bois et au même moment les zones dans lesquelles il y a cette pratique d'utilisation ou bien de production de charbon de bois. Donc pour pouvoir produire ou bien introduire des modèles de gestion durable et accompagner ce processus-là pour que ça devienne durable. Et aussi, nous voulons, au cours de ce programme du ProRed, de la GIZ, nous voulons aussi voir dans quelle mesure nous pouvons appuyer en termes de formation pour les producteurs de charbon de bois, les appuyer, les conseiller pour que la production de charbon de bois ne soit pas, ou bien ne soit plus un facteur de déforestation comme c'est identifié au niveau national. Donc voilà ce que nous faisons. Et aussi, nous voyons que la situation est pratiquement la même en Afrique, au sud du Sahara. Et la meilleure façon, c'est de ne pas voir le côté négatif, mais plutôt de voir le côté positif, de voir qu'est-ce que nous pouvons apporter au processus pour que ça soit durable et que ça puisse continuer par nourrir les gens en Afrique. Voilà, merci.
Okay. So in short, for those who couldn't really follow the French language, you say basically wood energy is a threat. Unless we manage to turn the whole chain into a sustainable value chain, which offers opportunities for populations to get out of their poverty chain, get a reasonable income out of it, legalize the process it properly, and what you're adding is that international agreements or schemes such as REDD, RED+, actually offer an extra opportunity to make this wood energy from a threat to an opportunity. Is there anybody who wants to react to this? Yes, please.
Shall I speak French or English? Well, the problem is I've been listening that how to solve the wood field problem. But what I haven't listened yet is that the whole of the environment has to have a good management. For example, I don't know of the case of Togo, but in Mali, where I observed 25 years ago some deforestation because of the extensive use of fuel wood, there were very big cotton plantations which were at the service at the time of the CFDT, la Compagnie Française de Textile, which were over the best lands and sended the poor people further north, which is drier, and they exerted quite a lot of pressure over the scarce forest resources of zone. So it's a problem much more wider than we can see.
So it is probably not so much managing the wood energy chain, but managing the entire landscape. Who wants to respond to this one? Any volunteers? Coffee?
Okay.
Steve? Yeah. First Coffee, then Steve.
Ok. Dans cette situation, le Togo, aujourd'hui, n'a pas... Je peux dire qu'il n'y a pas cette situation en tant que telle au Togo où les populations sont renvoyées sur il y a des entreprises, effectivement, qui viennent, qui s'installent de manière légale, et je crois que on n'est pas encore arrivé à cette étape, mais comme vous le dites, en Afrique de l'Ouest, il y a des cas comme ça qu'on peut évoquer aujourd'hui. Voilà.
But how to move from wood energy supply chain management to integrated landscape management, of which wood energy is just one component? Steve?
Well, we have one big problem. This is open access. And we have to come to the time where a tree has a value. Yeah, the tree has no value because we just the market price just comprises exploitation and transport, but no sustainable management. So nobody is really interested to invest. Yeah, and these investments have to be externally, as it is done with the technical assistance. But this has to change. There is so much money in it. We have to give trees a value, and then they are incorporated in the landscape. And we have the on the other hand, we have the technology on the consumption side to reduce. So it will not be on a burden to the consumer, and it will also boost the dissemination rate of stoves. Yeah, because since 30 years there is no real boost.
So how to add that value, actually? I think we need some financial people here to say something smart. Could I ask you to say something smart?
I can try, but no, my biggest question would be, I mean, we've seen lots of very good solutions that are out there, and we still don't see any scale happening. So I would wonder what would enable investors to come in and place a lot of money in kind of scaling up all of these solutions. What do you guys see as necessary for that?
All right. So you throw the question back to the panel. Okay, here we go. Well, that's actually in line with the questions that we had in mind. But let's take things step by step, not from the local to the international. First, I would like to ask Steve, how did your fairly local example, how did it get sort of upscaled? How did the Madagascar government learn from your activities, scale it up to the national level, and translate it into national policy making? Can you first reflect on that before we go to yours?
Probably one advantage was that we didn't start on national level, we started on local level. Yeah, and it was a small project. And then, because there were incentives for the local population, especially via the tenure agreements, yeah, it boosted. So, and then the regional policymakers became aware. Then this biomass strategy has been integrated, but on a regional level. And all of a sudden, with the growing reforestation area, the national decision makers became aware, hopla, this we could do also. And now it has been integrated into the energy strategy. Because if you look into, there are a big part of the African energy strategies consider fuel wood, although it is the most important, only in the first chapter where they talk about the problems. In the second chapter, they talk about modern energy. Yeah, they don't consider that wood fuel could be a modern energy as it is in Europe. Yeah, and therefore, a lot of awareness raising, policy making has to be done.
Okay, but that has been done in Madagascar effectively,
yeah,
has it?
But still, the biggest problem is that what we ask for is law enforcement. Yeah, and law enforcement isn't done because it's a sensitive issue, and we are not. And in fact, in the long term, we don't need any transfer money because there is much money involved in it. You could do it on its own. Yeah, you have to reduce open access areas. Un point entrée.
Yeah, okay, so that's the national level. I come back to you and to you. But first, please, Mark, you talked about international upscaling. Why is it that international donors, donor communities, investors, banks do not see this tremendous opportunity as an investment opportunity?
I don't know, does this work? Yeah. Well, the question came from the lady there, from what are the conditions sort of that are an invitation for investors to take part in that upscaling. You mentioned law enforcement as part of the problem for the upscaling. Huh? I would like to add another point to that discussion is and Mary also referred to it, what is the percentage of the national energy budgets that go to domestic fuel compared to what goes, for example, to hydro dams, to export, which are mostly for export, energy for export. So there comes a question of political will and how good does it look on your CV when you're a minister. The topic is sort of invisible. When I'm a minister, and I'm there for maybe 3 years, maybe 4 years, I'll probably be more glad to be associated with a big hydro dam which exports energy for my personal CV and my career afterwards, then I say I've contributed some to solving the domestic energy problem. So I think part of the issue lies there.
I have an additional question before I go to the two from the audience, and that's probably addressed to Mary. Mary, in this whole forum, we've talked a lot about landscape restoration. Restoration, planting trees, investing in trees, in biomass, to restore landscapes and create markets for landscape restoration. Do you see opportunities in this landscape restoration to boost the wood energy sector?
There are a lot of opportunities in terms of wood energy and the debates and the practice in land restoration. And it's not a one-fit kind of scheme. We can't say it's just about agroforestry, it's about plantations, it's all about what is suitable at a particular place, what species is good at a particular place, and so we look at which system is more sustainable at a particular place and for what purpose. Because if you look at agroforestry, small-scale farming, it has its own space in, agroecosystem healthy landscapes. If it's about plantations, it also has its own. So let's look at the different options, what works well, and let's make them sustainable. And we also look at energy and how it can be incorporated to other projects, other programs. For example, if you're talking about programs on health, look at, for example, nutritional related health issues. Then we won't be able to solve them if people do not have fuel to put food on the table. So we have to look at it and how it fits in different projects.
So yes, it offers opportunities, this whole restoration hype if I may say so. But the hypes, that's the problem with hypes. They become mainstreamed and they become blueprints. And your point is using restoration for sustainabilizing the wood energy chain is very place specific. Do the right thing in the right place. I see somebody here who has a lot of experience with restoration in particular places, with particular crops. May I ask you to say something about this?
Yes, thank you. I'm Hans Friedrich. I'm the Director General of the International Network for Bamboo in Rattan. And in fact, one of my questions was going to be to certainly the representatives from Kenya and speaker from Madagascar. What about bamboo? Bamboo is not a tree. It's a grass species, grows very fast, can be turned into charcoal, and is therefore a very viable alternative option. So on top of using trees, can we use bamboo as well?
When I saw your face, I knew this question was going to come. Mary, is there bamboo in Kenya?
Yes. I think this question is better answered by somebody who is doing bamboo work in Kenya.
Who is that?
Let me show you. Thank you, Mary. Actually, even more appropriately, I know you're laughing, more appropriately than the Greenbelt, the Wanjira Mathai, the Greenbelt Movement, is Aisha Karanja, who is the executive director of the Greenbelt Movement, to talk a little bit about what the Greenbelt Movement is doing with bamboo for both biomass, for charcoal, but also as an entrepreneurship fuel for women's economic empowerment.
Thank you very much. My name is Aisha Karanja. Yes, we have bamboo in Kenya, to answer the question. And to also say that as Greenbelt Movement, what we are doing is we are using bamboo. We have a pilot project where we are planting with our women, and we are using bamboo for entrepreneurship, also for conservation, for fuel, and for food. So I want to respond to Inba and say yes, bamboo is also part of what we should be thinking about. It's a sustainable way of wood fuel. Thank you.
We're very happy to have, well, actually both of you in our midst. So yes, there is bamboo in Kenya, and yes, restoring landscapes with bamboo actually achieves those ecological, social, and economical goals. Am I right? I would like to ask our entrepreneur, how do you would you invest in such a bamboo business for restoration?
Yes, but I will also invest in transportation. I think the main link to make a successful charcoal producing venture is to give the transport ability to the producers.
So that brings us back to the chain story. Investing in restoration is fine, but it will never be profitable if you don't invest in transportation. Who may want to respond to this one? Mark?
Yes, regarding the bamboo, although I'm not a bamboo expert, I would like to, when we talk bamboo, I would like to highlight one issue is sort of a multidisciplinary approach to issues. Because if you look at Madagascar, there is also a massive invasion of bamboo on the natural forests. So that's an issue. So think about it before we start. And the second thing is when we talk about invasive species, I know, for example, examples from Kenya, where they are focusing their charcoal making, high-quality charcoal making, on invasive species. So we are talking landscapes. So let's look at it from the different disciplines that work or that have knowledge about these different aspects of a landscape.
Very briefly, in Madagascar there are 43 species, and they're mainly all endemic species to Madagascar, so to claim they are invasive is not correct.
Are they making good charcoal?
Yes, and we have to, I mean, basically you have management issues with landscapes, of course, but that's an incorrect statement.
Well, that brings us back to the landscape management thing. You can manage value chains, but how to place them within a landscape perspective. By the way, we've received 2 panda bears from China. I don't know if you heard that. In our hometown in the Netherlands, we got 2 panda bears now. They're starving because we don't have bamboo. So, so that shows the chain. You start with the demand. Then you need a transportation and you need a production. don't know really. Is the yes? You want? Oh, you must be a bamboo expert.
No, I'm not a bamboo expert, but my name is Johannes. I'm from Indonesia. In Indonesia, people are doing bamboo. And actually, I'm a farmer, and I don't do bamboo, sorry. But I know that bamboo is a good business there. What I do is we call it Anthocephalus, if you know, jabon. Yes, the fast-growing tree, which is create moisture to the surrounding and the land. So it's good for the environment, and you can plant it in a very massive, and that's the good issue for the financing, Mr. Entrepreneur. Because if you can have in 1 hectare of land 300 tons of wood, then that's a good fuel. If you have only like 18, like Mary said, I think it will be very small and not valuable, not enough value. Why I raise up my red? Because I think if you use tree you use tree for the fuel, but it's not enough, then that's not good.
So you need scale, you need quantity, you need production, you need transportation, you need to address the entire value chain, but from a landscape perspective. So interconnected with urban areas, with demand areas, with interconnected value chains. So a landscape approach for sustainable wood energy value chains, or something like that. Time is running. I would like to gradually round off by asking all our 5 speakers to come up with one short statement, and really a short statement of what, according to you, should be done to promote wood energy supply chains within a landscape perspective. Short, is that feasible? Can I start from your end, Mark? They both work.
Yeah, from my perspective, the issue would be that all owners, all investors in landscapes, whether you're dealing with food security programs or whether you're in the health sector, you have to make a contribution to solving this domestic fuel issue. So that would be a request if I was a government official to any donor coming to my country. You have to think along with me how we're going to solve this one.
Is it true that we don't have high-level government officials here? The not so high-level government people, can you please pass on this message to your bosses? Please do so. Kofi, can I have one statement from you?
Oui, à mon niveau également. Donc, c'est dire qu'on a besoin des acteurs de tous les bords, mais aussi les acteurs à la base, les inclure et clarifier le rôle de chacun pour que le secteur soit durable. Voilà.
So all the actors across the chain needed to play their role and understand their role and play their role accordingly. Yeah.
Well, I would say an approach must be simple. Simple so that the farmer understands it, but because they chop the tree or not. It must be, there have to be quicker returns for the farmer, and yeah, well.
Okay, so long-term thinking is nice, but short-term thinking is also necessary. That's crystal clear. Christine?
Well, I think what needs to be looked at is this cross-linkage between sectors that is really, you know, people pushing it from one sector to the other. You're saying it's an energy problem. No, it's a forestry problem. No, food security is coming in there. There's land degradation in there. So I think a holistic approach is needed as well. And I think that's where landscape restoration offers opportunities, because you always have to have an holistic approach, because you have different sectors coming together there.
Okay, so get the wood out of its silo and into the holistic approach. Oh, Mary.
Sustainable production and efficient utilization of wood fuel is important if we have to achieve healthy landscapes and healthy families.
Okay, healthy landscapes, healthy families. Any additional statements from the audience? I'm quite sure. Yes, Mr. Entrepreneur.
I would think that we have to think in the future, because, well, we're addressing the wood fuel problems of people who have scarce resources. But we have not addressed the problem to the people, those villages, isolated, who have sufficient wood, and they if we use efficient cooking devices, there are in the community some mass of wood fuel which could be available to be used for the development, and that has not been addressed.
Okay, yeah. Now, Ms. Aisha, can you please respond to that? Can you help me?
The question is that in communities who have enough wood, if you introduce improved cook stoves, for example, in that one community in Mexico, 600 inhabitants, they will have 600 kilos. If you reduce by half what they use, with improved cook stoves, they will have 600 kilos of wood a day to make a profitable use of it. But there's no way. So they don't have an incentive to save wood.
So what would be the incentive for local communities to start making charcoal as a business?
Well, I'm not sure I understand the question, but so what's the incentive for local communities who are producing X amount of firewood? They use efficient cook stoves, so they use less firewood for the cooking, and then you have an excess.
Available.
Oh, but they may not have harvested that firewood if they didn't. They would harvest less firewood in the first place, because then you harvest what you use. A lot of families will not harvest that much if they don't need it. So if you're using efficient cook stoves, then you're not using that much firewood. So that's why I don't understand. It's not like you'll have a pile of firewood sitting there if you don't need it.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, Mary, can you please briefly respond to this?
If households, for example, if farmers are growing trees, multi-purpose trees, for example, and they are harvesting prunings and using it for firewood, if they shifted to utilizing improved cook stoves, then they use less firewood and they'll have surplus for sale. Then they'll be able to use firewood for home use and then the surplus for sale, as a source of income. Actually, this is happening. In Kenya, for example, the farmers who are nearby tea factories, they are having trees on farm, they get the prunings, they use at home, and they are left with surplus, which they sell to the tea factories, and they earn income out of it.
I think there's more time for debate after this session. I even think there are drinks available, so that will offer a good and enabling environment to continue. But for now, I would really like to round up, and we have some few minutes left for Christine. And Christine, it's not my core competence to make sharp final summaries, but I know it's yours. So please, can you summarize our debate and give us some good messages to take home and start working?
Well, thank you. Thank you, Cora. I think it's actually quite a challenge to summarize the discussion, which has been very fruitful and very diverse as well. And I would like to thank everybody here for their contributions as well. I think what we can see that wood energy is really a very important topic in many developing countries and will remain one of the most or one of the main pillars of energy provision in a lot of these countries. And the provision of sustainable wood energy is really an urgent need. It's a topic which we have seen in the case studies that needs to be addressed to be addressed, and there are huge challenges attached to it, but there's also a big development potential which needs to be looked at, or which can be looked at. Provision of wood energy or the extraction of wood is a driver of forest degradation. It's a serious problem in many countries, but there are opportunities, as we heard from Togo, for example, when it's included into RED Plus strategies and implementation programs. There are rehabilitation programs. Then it can become an important part. Wood energy can become an important part of these programs. But what we need is more engagement. We need to look at scaling up. We heard some of the components here that are necessary for scaling up. We need the enabling environment. We need the awareness raising, but we also need the right incentives and the law enforcement. That was an issue that was touched upon quite often within the audience, but also the panelists. Today, we can see and we heard here that wood energy production can be a very profitable option for farmers to invest in. And the sustainable wood energy can contribute at the local or also at national level to has its economic benefits, but also social benefits, as we heard from the Madagascar story, for example, as well as environmental benefits. But also we should not forget that it can contribute to a lot of the international commitments we look at. The New York Declaration on Forests, with the aim of 350 million hectares of reforestation. Here we can have the production of sustainable wood energy playing an important component to that. There's the newly launched African initiative on forest landscape restoration, where in Africa 100 million hectares of forest landscapes are will be rehabilitated, well, not just reforested, but restored. So there are opportunities in the international arena as well. And I think coming back again to these interlinkages and looking at the Sustainable Development Goals, we do find that there's a contribution to, I just came up now quickly thinking of 4 goals. We have the Sustainable Development Goal number 6, addressing clean water, where forests play a vital role. We have the goal number 7, energy access, which of course is one main objective here. Goal number 13, combating and adapting to climate change. Forests again have an important role here. And goal number 15, protecting, restoring and promoting the sustainable use of terrestrial ecosystems. Forest management, forest or wood forest management can have an important role to play here. So to summarize, or to come to a last message, if wood energy is produced sustainably and also used efficiently, then it can be a very essential element for forest and for landscape restoration, and it needs to be something that should be promoted as well.
Wow. Thank you very much. That's amazing, the amount of information, the amount of learnings that we got out of this session. I would like to make a call to the organizers of the Global Landscape Forum of next year, 2016, to take this very important issue of wood energy as a potential opportunity for landscape restoration at scale, and not put it on the last day in the last session, but to put it in the opening speech at the very beginning, so that we've got 2 days to further talk about this. Thank you very much, audience. Hans Leiter, thanks, audience. Thank you very much, speakers, Mary, Christine, Steve, Kofi, Mark, and thanks for GIZ for giving us this opportunity. Thanks. And I want my tree back. The trees go on.